Tom is supported by his wife, Dr. Nancy Loy, their children, Peter and Kendra, and their granddaughter, Bella, who brings him endless joy. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming into the distinguished roles of the Buckeye Boys State Hall of Fame a leader, a mentor, and a builder of community, a lifelong servant for the public good, Mr. Tom Worley. If you will indulge me, I would like to read the plaque that we're about to present. The American Legion Buckeye Boys State Hall of Fame, presented to Tom Worley, Buckeye Boys State Class of 1971, for his outstanding service to the state of Ohio and its citizens, given this 15th day of June, 2026, signed Robert Schmidt, President, and James Coppin, Director. Mr. Worley, it is a privilege.
Well, good evening, Buckeye Boys State. Yeah. First, if you see me around campus this week, please do not call me Mr. Please do not call me Sir. Just call me Tom. Like you, I once was sitting where you are tonight. I attended Boys State, as Jeff mentioned, in 1971 in Ashland College. Back then, there were nearly 1,500 delegates spread across 28 cities and 7 counties. I ran for governor, and I lost. So in other words, I got the full Buckeye Boys State experience in politics. Fortunately, the governor who beat me appointed me to be director of the Youth Commission. You know, that's the way it works sometimes. You find out, you lose an election, and another door opens. With the help of my staff and the legislature, we got our legislation passed that year. Tonight, I'd like to talk about Boys State then and now. Things have changed. And also a few lessons that have stayed with me for more than 50 years. Back in 1971, there was no air conditioning at Boys State. If it was 95 degrees outside, it was 95 degrees inside. Nobody complained because everybody was miserable together. Today, thanks to Miami University, you have air-conditioned dorms, offices, arenas. Back then, there was only one meal choice. Whatever they served, that's what you ate. One year, it seemed like every meal contained some form of ham. Some delegates responded by renaming their city Ham City. Today in the cafeteria, you have choices, lots of choices. Although, I will say this, Ashland College made delicious homemade donuts every single morning. All these years later, I still miss those donuts. Back then, we didn't walk to events, we marched. We sang cadences, we did call and responses, we challenged rival cities. Some of those cadences were creative, some were questionable, some were even funny. Many would have caused English teachers to cringe, but it was poetry. Yet those chants built teamwork, spirit, and identity. One of the most famous military cadences begins, sound off, 1, 2, sound off, 3, 4. Where did that come from? It was the Duckworth chant. Surprisingly, it wasn't created by a drill sergeant. It was created during World War II by a young private named Willie Lee Duckworth, a person of color, a person of character. Before joining the Army, Duckworth grew up in Georgia Farm, where he called hogs home at the end of the day. One day, by marching with his unit, he started calling cadence in that same powerful voice. He offered colorful verses as part of it as well. Soldiers loved it. The chant spread across the Army and eventually around the world during the war. It was even featured on the soundtrack of one of the greatest movies of a generation, Wayne's World. No way, way. Think about that for a moment. An ordinary young soldier created something that outlived him and inspired generations of others. Leadership and influence don't always come with high rank or a title. Sometimes they come from having the courage to step forward and use your voice. Today, that tradition of cadence calls lives on through the Buckeye Boy State Highway Patrol. They showcase a sense of teamwork and discipline while cleaning up some of the lyrics. Back then, Hetuck was printed in a local newspaper. There was no social media because the internet hadn't been invented yet. Now Hetuck prints its own edition, publishes it online, and streams content live, like tonight, throughout the week for the world outside of Boy State to hear and see. Back then, elections were conducted on paper ballots. One year, actual voting machines were brought in. The result? Well, delegates stood in line until after midnight to vote. We quickly discovered that technology doesn't always help. Now the elections are electronic with immediate results. Back then, city councilors received one night off each week. Special counselors like me would fill in until the city councilor made it back to the dorm, sometimes stumbling back into bed. That tradition eventually disappeared, along with the counselor paycheck. Now counseling staff is entirely volunteers, no nights off, just folks helping to develop the next generation of leaders, you. Back then, many American Legion members were veterans of World War II and Korea. One of the Legionnaires I was fortunate to know was Buckeye Boy State co-founder Pete DeWeese, a World War I veteran. Pete directed the Buckeye Boy State Band for more than 40 years and led the very first Buckeye Boy State in 1936 at the Ohio State Fairgrounds. He remained devoted to this program throughout his life. We miss you, Pete. Now, those veterans have largely passed the torch, but their spirit of service remains very much alive. The American Legionnaires who serve you now, they may no longer wear a military uniform or draw a government paycheck, but they are still serving their country. They freely give their time, their talents, and often their resources to invest in young people like you. Their commitment goes beyond patriotism. It reflects an immense strength of their faith. It reflects a belief in serving others, helping those in need, loving your neighbor, and leaving the world better than how you found it. While many things have changed, the most important things have not. The purpose of Boy State remains exactly the same: developing leaders, building character, and preparing young men to serve their communities. And that's why I want to pause and express my gratitude. To the American Legion, thank you for nearly a century of investing in young people and believing that citizenship matters. To the Buckeye Boy State Hall of Fame Committee, thank you for this incredible honor and for preserving the stories, the legacies of those who have helped shape this program. And to the Board of Trustees and Commissioners who dedicate countless hours to keep this program strong, thank you for investing not only in me, but in generations of future leaders who will leave this place prepared to make a difference. I am deeply grateful. I also am grateful for the privilege of serving on the Buckeye Boy State counseling staff for many years and since then as a consultant. What began as a one-week program for me as a delegate became one of the most meaningful parts of my life. It shaped my career. Through Boy State, I gained friendships, learned from great mentors, and watched generation after generation of young men discover strengths they didn't even know they possessed. There's something special about standing in a city meeting, a campaign headquarters, or a dormitory late at night and watching a delegate realize that he's capable of more than he imagined. Those moments never get old. The counselors, commissioners, trustees, and consultants who serve Buckeye Boy State are not here for recognition. They are here because someone invested in them long ago, and they believe it's their responsibility to invest in the next generation. Soon, this week will be over before you know it. You'll return home with new friendships and hopefully a new appreciation for citizenship and leadership. My hope is that many of you will someday return to Boy State, not as delegate, but as counselors. The greatest measure of what Boy State has given you is what you choose to give back. This program has been enriching lives since 1936 because each generation has accepted the responsibility to teach, mentor, and lead the generation that follows. Someday that responsibility will belong to all of you and no longer us. And I can tell you from personal experience, serving on the staff has not just been rewarding as much as a delegate. You really get to know people by being a member of the staff. Now let me share some lessons that Boy State taught me. Soon after Boy State, I became interested in public service because I believed government could be a good force and could set high ethical standards, despite the trauma in my days of Watergate, where government leaders went to jail and the president resigned. That belief to uphold high standards was tested throughout my career. In my first job out of college, I witnessed a senior official struggling with alcohol addiction. Everybody saw it, everybody knew it, but nobody wanted to speak up. Not my supervisor, not my deputy director, not my director. The easy thing was silence. The right thing was harder. What would I do? It was a test. I finally decided to meet the mirror. I spoke up. I didn't talk about politics. I didn't talk about performance. I talked about someone who needed help, someone who was not going to get better unless something changed. That next day, the official stepped away from his duties and entered a treatment program. He got the help he needed. He eventually returned healthy and lived a sober life. That taught me that leadership is not about avoiding those type of difficult conversations. Leadership is having them. Years later, when I was directing a state agency, I faced another challenge. The chair of my board asked for my opinion about a controversial issue. I knew she would not like my answer. I tried to kind of dance around it, but nope, she wouldn't have it. She stopped me and said, "Tom, I want complete honesty from you." Another test. I gave her my candid opinion without any filters. It was like I was standing naked in front of her with nothing to hide. She disagreed completely with my answer, but she respected my honesty. I later used that experience when training labor management groups. I would write 2 words on a flip chart as our goal for the day. Get naked. They would look at me very puzzled, and then I would have to explain. I would tell them the story of me in the chair of the board. What I meant was this: be willing to be vulnerable. Be willing to say what needs to be said, even if it's uncomfortable. Whether life asks you to speak up, speak out, or get naked, there will be moments when your character is tested. Those moments will define who you are. As we finish tonight, many of you stand at the edge of a major transition. Soon you'll leave home. Soon you'll make decisions without parents, teachers, or coaches looking over your shoulder. You'll build new friendships. You'll make mistakes. You'll celebrate your victories. You'll discover who you are. But let's be honest. You know, and I know, that not everything is okay in the world right now. Despite all the efforts of prior generations and even my own generation, many problems still exist. At Boys State, you are being trained to be problem solvers. What are you going to do about it? Will you be a leader or a spectator? Here's my challenge to you. If all wars are truly to end, teach us what changes must take place to achieve world peace. If the debate over climate change can find some consensus, teach us what we need to do now to protect the future. If the miracles of modern medicine are to continue, teach us how to support research and take risks so lives can be saved or improved. If pollution is to be kept under control, teach us how to make our air, water, and land safe for all to enjoy. If poverty is to be eliminated, teach us how to promote a free economy while caring for those in need. If discrimination is to end, teach us how to better understand each other, accept each other, and support each other regardless of our differences. If our communities are divided, teach us how to build bridges to find a common path. I tell you this, your days as a student may not end today, but your days as a teacher must begin today, for God knows we can't afford to wait any longer. Thank you.
I would like to thank the Hall of Fame Committee, Chairman Jeff Jordan, John Looker, Richard Elwards, Chris Schmidt, Ryan Lee, and Chairman Emeritus Darrell Bishop for their hard work in putting together tonight's Hall of Fame induction ceremony, honoring Tom Worley. And, Jeff?